Dr. Kalai Anand is a very senior technical trainer and cloud solution architect. He works for APU, Asia Pacific University in Malaysia. He's going to be talking about a very interesting topic, achieving governance in cloud computing with policy management. So a little bit about Kalai. Kalai is a senior technical trainer and cloud solutions architect with over 15 years of experience in enterprise design and training. He obtained his Ph.D. in information technology from University Technology Petronas and Masters of Network Computing from Monash University in Australia. Kalai handles extensive technical projects and trainings with regional corporations across the Asia Pacific in relation to architecting, securing, and optimizing for the cloud. Dr. Kalai is also appointed technical expert for the cloud computing track of WorldSkills, AWS Educate Cloud Ambassador, Rocheston Certified Trainer, Microsoft Certified Trainer, and AWS Authorized Instructor. With that, over to you, Anand. The stage is yours.
Thank you, Aditya, and for the introduction, and thank you, Rocheston, for inviting me to be part of the panel speaker. So good morning, good evening, good afternoon to all the audiences globally. My name is Anand. So let me share my slide deck first. So, okay, now I'm going to do, I'll go through with some fundamental introduction of governance in cloud computing, and then I will switch over to a demo. Okay, I'm going to show you how policy management and governance can be achieved in reality. Okay, so now before getting into the governance and policy, I would like to share with you some of the latest cloud security insights as of this year, 2020. Okay, so now the latest findings, a study undertaken by KPMG in terms of cloud threats, okay, for the year 2020. Interestingly, some of the findings after going through the report, what I found out that a lot of businesses are taking this opportunity in terms of getting into digital transformation and reorganizing the way they do business, okay? And this includes strategic adoption of digital services such as primarily cloud services, mobile application, and also data analytics. Now, with this adoption of cloud computing gaining momentum, there are a lot of challenges. Okay, there are a lot of challenges in which both from the operational perspective, compliance perspective, and also the security perspective. So the cybersecurity team globally, especially for the taking care of the public cloud, seems to be having a lot of challenges. Okay, they're having a lot of challenges and continuously on the race for looking at ways to better secure infrastructure and business application. Especially we would have seen during this COVID-19 pandemic, a lot of organizations started embarking on this cloud journey. And together with that, there are also a lot of security-related challenges which was overlooked, especially for newcomers. Now, one of the interesting things which was highlighted in the KPMG report was the basics of cloud security is still being studied because the way cloud providers such as AWS and Azure and Ali Cloud and GCP, the way they define security standards and security controls is varying. And especially with the hybrid computing model, you are looking at having governance, policy management, both on-premise and also on the cloud. Now, one of the interesting thing also on the report which was identified was the misconfiguration of cloud services, okay? Because traditionally what's happening is a lot of organizations are moving to, I would say rather adopting the lift and shift model. So when they start to adopt the lift and shift model, they are getting rid, the aim here is to get rid of their data center and move whatever workloads they have from on-premise to the cloud. So during that process, there's a lot of misconfiguration which actually has happened. So this is some of the findings, interesting findings. In fact, when I compared the findings for 2018, 2019, and 2020, the misconfiguration seems to be keep on appearing. So this is an an area which a lot of or the major cloud vendors is looking at it carefully, and I will show you how are they looking at it. Now, so when we start looking at retooling, okay, retooling for the cloud, it's not always about technology, but also going back to the fundamental people and processes. A lot of organizations or large enterprise, small enterprise, SMEs, they would have IT policies in place, IT and governance policies in place. But how do we actually translate this governance and IT policy into something which we can see or put it into practice, especially when we have our workloads in the cloud? So these are some of the findings as well. I will go through with that with you. And BISOs, or rather business information security officers, need to have a very clear charter in terms of how do they want to achieve governance, especially depending on what industry they are in. They could be in healthcare industry, they could be in financial industry, logistics, those industries which are highly regulated. Now, interestingly, what I found out was, because of this trend which keeps occurring, especially on the misconfiguration part of it, year after year, these organizations have started, the cloud providers have started embarking on putting in place machine learning and artificial intelligence to support the configuration of compliance. Okay, this is a good thing. So which means that there's a shared responsibility here, which is happening between the security engineer and the cloud provider. I will show you some demos on the machine learning as we go along, on how machine learning is playing a role for cloud security. Now, in addition, some of the key findings as well, a lot of unauthorized access through misuse of employee credentials. So this is also a concern. And access controls which are given but not revoked. Okay, sometimes they are given for a particular initiative, but it's not been taken away. Probably we forgot. Okay, now that is one. Item number 3, which is on APIs. Essentially, the whole thing about cloud is everything is everything is a piece of code. You define your entire infrastructure as a piece of code. So, which means that there is APIs which you can use to interface with these cloud providers for you to consume reports and services. Challenge for business owners, challenge for organization till now as I speak. There seems to be a lack of standardized GRCs, which is called governance, regulation, and compliance. This is a debatable topic until now. Okay, if you were to look at AWS, you were to look at Azure, even Ali Cloud, GCP, Oracle, this is something where they are putting a lot of effort, a lot of investments in defining these GRC. So there is no standard GRC. All of these providers are actually having their own GRCs, but it is aligned towards TOGAF and ITIL, but still it is varies by provider. So this is something which is maturing, and it will take time to mature. But definitely, in order for a business to get into the cloud, there has to be a full regulatory and compliance compliance standards to be met. Okay, this has to be done. Otherwise, you will not be able to meet those standards, especially highly regulated organizations, things like healthcare, supply chain, things like healthcare, logistics, finance, defense, and all of this. Okay, so that's where these are 2 challenges which I want to focus in. Now, some of the statistics which was obtained from the Oracle KPMG report, this is for 2020, just got this report about a couple of days ago. Is published. Now, from the studies, it shows that there is a huge gap here in security gap. 90% is a huge number. Okay, and because of this high statistics number, and a lot of these cloud providers, what they are doing now is they are adopting this model called the zero trust model. So zero trust model means we're not going to trust users within the organization nor users outside the organization. That's where artificial intelligence and machine learning is playing a significant role here in terms to keep the check and balance of compliance and regulatory in place. Now, so the statistics here even shows that the growth of cloud is exponentially very high, and with such growth, there could be a lot of unwanted incidents, things like data loss and unauthorized access and all of these things as well. So these statistics is giving a sense of motivation that there is a real challenge here that we need to address. Now, interestingly, the report from Gartner and also KPMG suggests that most of these challenges in terms of compliance and regulations, compliance and policies are due to lift and shift approach. So a lot of companies are lifting and shifting applications and they leave it there, done with it. They are not looking at how to re-architect the solution to fit or take advantage of the cloud. The cloud providers such as Azure, AWS, and all the major ones have done a remarkably excellent job in terms of having the GRC in place. But because of the approach taken by business owners to do a lift and shift approach, the moment they already put their workloads on the cloud, done, I'm already on the cloud. That's not the end of it. Okay, that is not the end of it. So that's where re-architecting to take advantage of the GRC is very, very critical. Okay. Now, most large enterprises have already made investments in their on-premise infrastructure. So which means that now hybrid cloud is going to play a big major role here. So whenever you start going into this hybrid cloud environment, there's going to be a lot of security concerns over here because you have information flowing cross-border. Okay, you have information flowing cross-border and even across the public network. This was reported by Gartner in 2020 that 90% of the organizations are going to have some sort of hybrid because they don't, probably due to two reasons. The first reason would be investments have already been made for on-premises, and second thing would be not to put everything on the cloud. You still want to retain sensitive information on premise and commonly used workload or non-critical workloads on the cloud. So this adoption is going to grow. So with that, 3 questions I'm going to take on, which is cloud computing governance. When we speak about cloud computing, most of us know what is cloud computing, but what is cloud computing governance? It boils down to 3 questions. First one, are we doing the right things? And how do we know we are doing the right things? Because there's no standard. Are we doing them in the right way? There's no proper guidelines. So the question is, are we doing them in the right way? And how do we know that we are doing these things properly? How do we know it is complying to a particular standard? For example, if you look at healthcare, they have the HIPAA Act. For e-commerce and payment, they have the PCI DSS standards. So different standards have different control requirements. So these are the governance. How do we know that our systems have all this in place when we start moving to the cloud? Moreover, whether it was there before on premise, we do not know. Now, so governance in cloud computing is traditionally to achieve, number one, transparency. There has to be full transparency in terms of the data, in terms of how are you doing your processes, and you should be able to drill down and see whether these controls are all visible. Okay, there has to be a compliance checklist. Also a concern, your information flowing through borders, Data Protection Act. Is your data governing GDPR, PDPA? These are some of the compliance requirements. And the fourth thing is, how is data protected? Encryption is not all. Okay, where do you store it? Okay, so these are the some of the questions which raises in governance in cloud computing. Think about it, and I will show you how this has been achieved on the cloud live. So In addition, when we talk about cloud governance, you are looking at performance indicators in terms of whether certain standards are met. You are continuously monitoring if those standards are in place or breaks halfway, because normally we put things in place and along the line it is kind of derailed. So that's where audit comes in. Okay, that's where audit comes in. And the fourth thing is, how do we put in place standards, templates, processes, taking all your IT policies which you have developed and putting it into practice is what cloud governance is all about. Okay, so with that, I'm going to get into two major architectures here, because that's how most businesses are either using Azure or AWS or GCP or Oracle. Is between these four, or I mean you have Ali Cloud as well. So each of these cloud vendors have their own framework on how to achieve governance. Okay, it could be in terms of policies, in terms of the way you name things, the way you provide access, and all of this. Okay, so this is one of it. And the second thing is, how do you define corporate policies? Now in Azure, for Microsoft Azure, there are 5 disciplines in which cloud governance is measured. Number one, cost. By going to the cloud, has it reduced total cost of ownership or increased the total cost of ownership? First question. So cost is one part of the governance. Okay. Second thing is security baseline. Are you complying to the security standards in line to your business requirement? Okay. This is one. Second one. Third one, resource consistency. Whenever you configure resources, this could be your virtual machines, your virtual networks, your disk storage. Are these being consistently being deployed, and the configuration, are they always in the same manner? There has to be some set of practices. Okay, so followed by the fourth one and the fifth one, which is an identity baseline and deployment acceleration. So all of these now are governed through automation. Okay, all of these are governed through automation. Not to worry, I'm going to show you how this is actually been done. Now, on the other hand, AWS has their own adoption of GRC. If you look at here, slightly, there's a slight variance, but again, it sort of falls within the same umbrella. Okay, it's just the way they are putting it. But if you look at AWS, the first step is more on assessing the cloud risk, whereas on Azure, they start looking at the cost first. Okay, so cost is what is going to decide whether a customer stays with a particular cloud provider or move on. So the way AWS governance works is they look at how do we assess cloud security risk, how do we plan migrations, especially when you're looking at moving your workloads from on-prem to the cloud as well. And automation is the key here. We want to minimize human intervention when it comes to deploying resources. Okay, so everything has to be automated, whether it's security, whether it's resource automation, all of it. And we have continuous monitoring. Governance is all about continuous monitoring. When I say continuous monitoring, it's not about human monitoring. It's about, we have agents which are continuously monitoring and then providing alerts if there is derailment of the configuration, what we call it, configuration drift. Okay, so continuous monitoring is also essential in ensuring governance. Okay, because what happens is, if your organization is being subjected to an audit, that's when you might probably get into situations where to see whether your compliance level is high enough. Okay, so I'm going to get into the demo over here. So what I have with me right now, I've logged on into the Azure portal. This is an active subscription of an Azure portal. This is my subscription. So there, I have provisioned quite a number of things here. I have about 13 over resources, I believe, 16 over resources running. So I'm going to show you now how compliance and governance is achieved in cloud from Microsoft Azure perspective. AWS have their own one, but they're not very much different, pretty much similar. Okay, so I'm going to go over to the first thing is the advisor. So when you get into Azure, you will see the first thing is called advisor. So this advisor is actually a machine learning driven technology, which actually continuously scans your resources and starts performing some sort of recommendation. Okay, starts performing some sort of recommendation. So these are the baselines. Even the baselines are already been set. So the recommendations are centered along 5 main pillars: cost, security, reliability, operational performance. And in my experience of administering both Azure and AWS tenant, I've found it's very interesting to find out that the security is the one which keeps showing the highest number of recommendation every other time, probably on a weekly basis. The rest is very low because they're all well architected. It's these things which keeps popping up. So as a security engineer, your job here becomes a bit easier now because there is this machine learning giving you some recommendations in terms of what is it that you need to do. Okay, so these are all the compliance regulations in terms of whether have you secured your accounts with MFA, for example. So typically I tell customers the very least, these are just recommendations. You can just choose to follow or just ignore it, but it doesn't make logic if you just ignore it. So to start off with, at least address those which are on the high impact. So when Azure Security says that, hey, this impact is high, what does that mean? It means that this have an impact of security on your resources. Okay, there's a security impact on your resources. So really make life easy in the sense that even tells you how to secure it and how to stay compliant. Okay, so for every non-compliant, they tell you how to make it compliant. You don't have to go and scramble and look for the documentation how to do that. You just have to fix it. Okay, follow the thing and just fix it, and immediately that issue has been solved. So there are many pillars over here. If it's good, then it's well and good. Over here, if they say there's nothing, everything is good, then it's good. But you can still see the terms of the list of costing, and this is actually coming to a documentation, so that's fine. So these are the 3 things here. So if you look at reliability, there's also an issue of reliability. How do you protect accidental deletion of data? So what Azure Reliability, Azure Advisor is saying, you need to enable soft delete so that in the event if you accidentally delete your data, you can still recover it. So this is also a compliancy requirement. If you have such IT policy, how do you recover your data? So this is one part of the Azure Advisor, which is driven by machine learning. This thing is getting smarter and smarter. The more resources you put, the more you start using it, it is going to give you continuously start giving you recommendation. Now with that, I'm going to go over to the security center. So in your security center, you're going to see policy and compliance. This is what I love the most. A lot of organizations say that, yes, I'm fully complying to my IT systems are all fully comply with the regulations. The moment the workload is transferred to the cloud, you will notice that, oops, the score is only 8%, which means that your policy and compliance of your business application is only 8%. I have deliberately disabled certain things for the purpose of demo to show you how a non-compliance will look like. So these are the different regulatory compliance requirements. Okay, so certain businesses require that you have at least 100%. You must have 100% in order for you to be recognized or I would say, let me find a word for it. To be recognized or accredited by the authorized body. So these are all the different standards. Okay, these are all the different standards. So they also give you a report. So tomorrow, if an auditor from an IT auditor from KPMG or Gartner or Deloitte comes in, this is what they're going to check. And if you don't fix this, then it's considered that you are running non-compliant. Think about it. Was this available easily for on-premises? No, it was not as easy. Machine learning was not there at that time. Okay, so this is one of the major benefits. So let's download the report. I'm going to download the report. So you can download any report which you want, which regulatory standard you want. So I'm going to download the PCI DSS, which is the requirement for payment. Okay, so it's already downloaded. Let me open it. So this is the report for your tenant, for your application. They're actually telling you what is it that you have not done, what is it that you have done, which are the subscription, which has failed, which has passed. So this report will serve as an investigation report for you to start finding out why wasn't all this done. So what you have to do now is, let me just cancel this. Okay, what you have to do now is, when you scroll down, you're going to start seeing some flags over here in red and green, as in like what you need to do. So those items in red, you need to fix it so that this score is going to get higher and this pass controls is going to increase. So if you start fixing one by one, what's going to happen? It is going to go higher and higher, and eventually you will achieve 100%. You have to achieve 100%. Okay, now, so let's look at it. The green ones are probably those which are pretty much fine. You just need to look at it if it's not very severe. So start off with the severe ones. So these things are not, why is it grayed out? Because I have not used it. So when I have not used it, it doesn't even check for it. Okay, but there are other things like my virtual machines. My virtual machines are not, my disk are not encrypted. Okay, so this is risky when we have customer data sitting on a virtual machine, but it is not encrypted. So how do we know it's not encrypted? So this is where the regulatory compliance report will tell you that, hey, it's not encrypted, get it fixed. So click on the assessment and it's going to tell you which are the ones which are not encrypted. All you need to do is look at the remediation steps, click on it, get it done. So once you do it, your score will go up. Okay, your score will go up. Then you can have a new report being generated. Every time the report which is generated is based on your findings. Okay, then we can go over to the managing the compliance policies. Okay, so if you were to look over policies, you can apply the policies at your, on top of your entire organization, be it whether on individual subscriptions or your entire organization. Now, I'm going to go over now to the score. Okay, so here they're telling you that your score needs to be improved. Okay, you at least should be here. Okay, so get all this done and do it. So every step on how to achieve is available. Okay, what are the recommendations that you need to do and what is it that you need to do? Surprisingly, I'm quite impressed by just having MFA. It actually gives you, it actually increases your score by 71% and gives you 10 points just by doing a simple thing, MFA. Okay, that is the most critical one. Now, so back to the security center. So same thing, next thing over here, we even have the resource hygiene in terms of which resources are having high severity. Okay, so this is what organizations want to see, be it whether you are a healthcare, you are a financial institution, you're a defense institution. This really, really matters. Okay, so whenever organizations put workloads on the cloud, your job is not done. No, we always say that by putting on the cloud, it's safe, or by when there's a security incident, we always question, how can this happen? Because I already put it on the cloud. All cloud providers work on a shared responsibility model. You are only transferring some risk to the cloud provider. There's also certain things you need to do as a business owner and a application owner. So there's a lot more things we can look at the policy and compliance, but I just want to focus on this part of it. So this is the regulatory compliance. So I have configured for these 4 regulations, but again, there are a lot of other regulations depending on the industry you are in. Okay, so different regulatory requirement have different controls that you need to harden. So depending on your business, you got to see which one you are using and complying with. But Azure has compliance with more than, if I'm not mistaken, is more than hundreds, 200, 300 over compliance standards they have in place. Okay, so this is on Azure, and then as a business owner, you can also define your own policies. Okay, so go over to assignments, and you can create your own policies. Okay, I'm going to go over and assign a policy. There are over 400 over policies which are pre-built, and this number is increasing. 2 months ago I saw was 230, now it's 460, and it's going. AWS has about 1,000 over policies. Okay, but you can also write your own policies, custom policies, in terms of what is it that you want to look out for or govern with. So governance and compliance comes with very strict policies. Okay, very strict policies. Now, why is this policy important? Now, a lot of organizations are going to the cloud because of very agile. It gives you the flexibility to create, read, update, delete whenever you want. Okay, but this agile, if it's not controlled through policies, and if you choose to give unrestricted access, you're going to have unintended cost and security consequences. That's why ongoing policy monitoring and governance monitoring is very important to ensure that it stays within the goals and requirements of your organization. Okay, that's why policy is governance and policy is important. Now, so you can write even your own policies over here using JSON syntax. So that's how you write it and define your policies. But there's already ready-made policies over there. And once the policy has already been enforced, you can actually see if it's even running. Okay, you can even see if it's running. How do you find out? Over here in the overview. So the overview will tell you whether you are in a compliant or non-compliant state. If it's non-compliant state, which means that there is a policy violation, go and fix it. Okay, that's all you need to do. We can even trigger alerts in the event there is a policy violation. It can trigger an email to the admin, in which the admin will be able to take action on it. So that's on the policy part of it and governance, which I showed to you. So in summary, I will share with you summary and some key takeaway. So if you are embarking on a journey to the cloud, whether it's Azure, AWS, GCP, Oracle, Ali Cloud, whichever cloud out there, it's not just about lifting and shifting your workloads. You got to effectively manage the compliance and governance. If not, you're going to have a lot of security related issues. Security related issues is not just password being stolen. This is more than that. Okay, things like data protection, encryption, access control, a lot of it. So that's where automation comes in. If you look at what I just showed you, it's automation. Machine learning, AI is playing a huge role in automating the entire compliance and governance on this cloud infrastructure. So key takeaway, I always share this to my customers, to my prospective participants during training. Just 4 things for you to look at. You want visibility and control, which I just showed you. You want to see the entire compliance and scores and all that. You want to be able to ensure that data security is enforced. There has to be strict compliance and governance in terms of whether the controls for each of the governance, whether it's PCI DSS or ISO standards, has to be in place. So that's the control which I showed you earlier. And lastly, supply chain security. Now, the supply chain security is not the supply chain of goods, but rather the entire end-to-end. That means from your business process to your physical security, to the application security, through your governance policies, all the way needs to be in place. So it is an end-to-end thing. So if you're already following a certain set of IT policies, then it has to be reflected on your organization's cloud infrastructure. With that, thank you very much. Over to you, Aditya. We can now take over to answer questions from the audience. Thank you very much.
And thank you for that very clear explanation of the governance required for cloud security. We do have a couple of questions. So the first one is, how can IT organizations remain relevant in the age of cloud?
Okay, in order for you to remain relevant, what I would say is, again, what happens is when you start to lift and shift application onto the cloud, that's the first move you will do. Second, re-architect your application, your solution, your infrastructure to take advantage of the features of the cloud, whether it's from the security perspective or from the cost perspective. If you're just going to lift and shift, I think you're better off just being on-prem because you're not taking advantage of the cloud. So stay relevant by re-architecting on the cloud, putting in automation, end-to-end automation, where the reliance on human beings are very much reduced. You don't eliminate human beings fully, but the reliance on human beings starts to reduce. So it's all about automation for better governance. Okay, so you can focus more on your business rather than having to sit and worry about whether you are complying to governance on the cloud. So I hope that answers your question.
Thank you, Anand. Next question. What about server hardening in the cloud?
So back to the demo in terms of, I'm going to just answer the question of server hardening. So what happens is over to security center. Okay. So now, whatever resources you apply, you deploy on the cloud, Azure Security Center in this case is going to tell you what is it you need to do to harden your resources. Okay. So all you got to do is follow this recommendation and your virtual machines and resources will be in a better state, okay, to be hardened and much more secure. So the machine learning capability within the cloud is able to detect all the vulnerability endpoints of your resources. Okay, so I always tell customers the basic thing you can do is at least get these recommendations sorted out, and you're already on the journey to hardening your resources. It's an ongoing journey, but the very least you can do is to follow the recommendations based on your compliance requirement.
Okay. Thanks. I think we have time for question. Bit of can flash the already made policy?
You were breaking. I couldn't hear, Aditya.
Can a custom policy clash with the already made policy?
Custom policy? I heard slash. Can you just repeat the question?
Can a custom policy clash with an already existing policy?
No, it will not clash. So even if you have similar policies, it will just tell you that it will just say that both are compliant. It doesn't clash, but you can't have both with the same names.
Okay. So Thank you, Anand. I think we do have a couple of more questions, but we are out of time. We have our next speaker waiting. So thank you so much for that awesome session. I think the audience loved it. If you look at the comments, a lot of them have comments and even questions that you can probably look at answering for them in the comment section after the talk. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Aditya, and have a
We're
great
happy
day.
to have you too. Bye-bye.